So, yes, please. I'm going to begin in a minute once we get our last finalist, second panelist to come. His name is Sam Klebanov. On my far right, I have Ms. Irina Albita of Film Chain. In the middle, I have Mr. Stuart Levy of the Producers Guild of America. Stu is the former chair of the International Committee, of which I'm the chair of. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be a part of this organization for the past 10 years, because Stu brought me in as an International Committee member, and then ended up helping me become the co-chair of the International Committee now. So now we're waiting for Sam to come, as he's going to make a grand entrance for us. Okay, so before he comes, let me just give you a little background about what this series is all about. This blockchain entertainment series was created back last year in during the London Film Festival, and we had Irina and Sam on, and we started coming about discussing. Well, welcome, Sam. So this discussion began, it was called Transparency, Anatomy of a Blockchain Distribution Strategy, and this is part 2 of that discussion that started back then. Now, how did all this stuff come about? It came about because of my own frustrations in the film industry of not understanding the dynamics of when you create content and put it out there, how are you going to end up making money when you make your film. So these fine individuals that are up here are going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and trying to explain it to you on how we can go about monetizing the content in a fragmented landscape. What do we mean by fragmented landscape? Today we have television, we have SVOD, and we have cinema. These are 3 different ways where your film's content is going to be monetized. Now, before I begin all that stuff, we have to ask ourselves, where is this all going? It's only going to be relevant if all these talking points that we're talking about today are going to turn into action points down the line. And these companies, for example, like Cinezen and Film Chain, have taken the initiative to take these talking points from one venue, from one event to another, and turn them into action points by creating the platforms necessary for filmmakers out there to make this happen. Now, why are they doing this? They're trying to do this to reduce barriers to entry for filmmakers who don't know how to get it out there, how to get their content out there and monetize it properly. And one of the important things that you have to understand, it's all this disruptive or supportive technology in issues that you're here today is what, in the words of an investor, is like the blade of a hockey stick. We're all trying to figure out how it's all going to work and how it's going to be implemented until at some point it's going to ramp up the stick and we go parabolic, and we're all going to understand this technology and be able to apply it universally. And at that time, that's when this becomes a game changer for all of us. So what I want from you guys out there, before we begin all this discussion, this is just a warm-up part of it, is to ask yourself, is this information that I'm receiving adaptable? Is it adoptable? And is it scalable to all the things that I have in mind? Is it something that I'm going to be able to utilize in my work and it's going to be relevant to me? That's very, very important. Now, for my panelists, what's important, I want you guys to be able to explain this in such a manner that it's crystal clear, so that with the people who are receiving, who are non-techies, who are people that are in the film industry, are able to engage with you later and try to find a way to work with you. And that requires teamwork. And what is teamwork? It's basically, we're together, we're trying to educate and motivate, TEAM. Educate and motivate you guys to get out there and use these platforms. And so from that, I want to start with the platform Curation that Sam has created, which is based on a company that he has called Cinezen. And I'd like for you to tell me just a little bit about what Cinezen does.
Hello, my name is Sam Klebanov. I'm the founder and CEO of Cinezen Blockchain Entertainment, which is a Swedish company. Our company also came out of frustration. The frustration with how the traditional film industry and traditional VOD services handle my content, because my background is distribution. I was working a lot with giving my films to iTunes. And sometimes my films were on the front page and I could see the results. Sometimes when I gave my films to iTunes and put I hoped to see them on the front page, but they were thrown directly to the mass grave for films, which the iTunes catalog is, and nobody could find them. Then I thought about how the films were purchased in the past. We would go to the DVD, to the rental stores or to video stores to buy or to rent films. Once I come into a video store called Republic, I mean it's a big video and bookstore, and I could see that they put, and many other stores did it too, they had a special shelf for my films, all my full collection, my big logo there. I never asked them for that. They curated the content because they run their store, and there was more like downtown Moscow for more like kind of upmarket audience. So they thought it would be great to have like branded store, branded department for my films. And then in LA, you always went to music.
One second, because you bring up a very, very interesting point. So you've got, if you're a distributor, for example, and you've curated content for the audience to select a certain number of films. So that means that the audience's access to those films is very limited. There's a lot of content that's being created out there that never finds a home.
Exactly.
Which basically, encourages piracy, correct?
Exactly. But when like individual stores can curate and kind of cultivate their audience, and they come to the store, they see that there is a selection of films, and I could see like the same kind of selections in my favorite store in LA, Amoeba Music. And then I thought, why can't we do it online? Why can't we create a system where everybody can set up their kind of store, select the content, and become a micro distributor for the films? Because it works like that. So
hang on one second. We're already the distribution process, because my colleague over here from the Guild, Stu, has a lot of experience. He's a content creator himself. He has a company called Tokyo Pop, and it started in Japanese anime. And Stu, I'd like you to talk about the traditional distribution model on a studio level and how that is done, because that's a little bit different from the independent world.
I think the key question, really, and to your point, Kayvan, is there's so much content nowadays out there in the market. You often have to think about who is the consumer of this content. And the studios, of course, pick what they think is going to be the most mainstream, or content that's specifically aimed at a target audience that they feel they can monetize their investment. And in the meantime, there's a number of films, as well as other parts of the content industry, that are created that cannot find an outlet. Can those films find an audience? I think that's a key question, regardless of what technology you end up using. Certainly the studios and streaming platforms like Netflix believe that there's not a big enough audience for them to invest in those films. But if you're creating a film that's very independent, can you find an audience? Are there alternative solutions? How can you monetize that? I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and the monetization part is actually where Irina comes in, because her company, Film Chain, deals with collection and account management. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
So great start to the conversation. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm Irina Albita. I'm the co-founder of Film Chain. Film Chain is a collection service that operates on blockchain and machine learning. And what the company does, it collects, tracks, and settles payments for the media industry. This very much sort of, as any entrepreneur, when we started our journey, we started, just as Sam mentioned, from a huge frustration of the way when the project is already out there in the world, when the money flow back into the project, that whole process for us was incredibly convoluted and incredibly tedious. Keeping track of all those transactions that you had to collect globally from distributors in China, in the US, in Europe, and then being able to transparentize that process and make it available to all those people that supported you in getting that project out there was something that we felt it was not there yet. So together with my wonderful business partner, Maria Tenjala, who's somewhere in the back, in 2014, we created our main company called BigCouch. That is a fintech company looking at supporting and empowering creatives with more data and financial acumen for them to better decisions in the future. And coming back to your question, Kayvan, We take the stand that the only way independent film producers can take advantage of and in a way democratize for them the distribution process if they have some technical architecture underlying their work where they can simply plug in and find those niches out there. Even if they say they just want to do documentaries, very specific documentaries, for sure there is an audience out there, but currently for them it's very difficult to reach. And democratizing and getting fans involved and communities around the world involved and incentivized to promote that specific title is what blockchain can do at the moment.
All right, so let's talk about this. Now we're rolling into the blockchain platform, which of course Cinezen has a very good workable model. So Sam, can you walk me through when you open up the page of your, for example, your website, you can see that there's different channels or different curated content that other people have created, and from that you can pick and select which content you want to watch and select how you can engage with that audience and book the film, and the money goes directly to the filmmakers. Could you go through the process of how that works?
Usually when you go to a traditional VOD platform, you see the storefront, like iTunes, and they decide what is on the storefront. And what they decide for the audience, which maybe they think is the most mainstream, or maybe you run a niche platform and you select content for your niche audience, whatever you select, you leave everything else behind. And our architecture is different. When you go to our platform, you see many different stores or channels curated by different people. So that's why we don't curate content ourselves. We take everything from the most art house and highbrow art house films to the sleaziest of horrors, because they can be in very different stores. And for example, we are talking now and we agreed with Fantastic Fest in Austin, which is the biggest genre film festival in the United States, that they would have their own branded store. We are talking to some people who would have their stores for LGBT films, for documentaries, for art house films, like we're talking to film critics, or to local distributors who can, like I used to be, who can create stores for their distribution brands. So, and then as a consumer, you can decide which stores are good for you. It's like you go to a big shopping mall to buy shoes or to buy a new jacket. And you know that some stores, some brands are in your taste, some brands you would never buy. Same here. And you can like mark your own favorite stores curated by different influencers and visit the stores.
Let's say, for example, I'm a huge historical epic guy. All I love is to watch historical films from 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, going all the way to the current day. And I want to create a channel for myself. I can do that on your platform.
Exactly.
And select films.
Exactly.
That so not only, go ahead.
You go to our platform, you apply for creating a store, you get like the store owner account. Now you can select films from the catalog, but we need to get these films to the platform first.
So that's just it. So the filmmakers have to agree to get on that platform.
Yes.
And in order to get on that platform, you have to agree to be on a blockchain platform, which is going to set off the stream of revenue that she's going to end up managing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Account management, right? Do you want to talk about that, Irina?
So absolutely. We really feel that blockchain technology has been in the mainstream for over 2 years now. It's been incredibly hyped, probably the most hyped technology since the internet. And it's one of the things that we see is that in order to get adoption, we need to get individuals, producers, distributors, sales, and so on, to have a very easy way of buying into the system, of getting on the system. And Sam's platform makes it easy for producers. They can purchase with cash, Ether, and then get immediately the titles that they want. Our system collects revenues globally in fiat currency, in euros, dollars, pounds, and we keep track, because that's what essentially the blockchain is a very simple way of storing and keeping track of records. We keep track of all these transactions in a very transparent way to the key stakeholders in a film or a TV project. And the moment, let's say, $1,000 hits the account of that that film, it's automatically distributed to all the beneficiaries that have been contributed or that need to are owed money at the end of
And that's done in real time, correct? I mean, you're verifying the stakeholders' revenue in real time. So it
the reporting,
helps the auditing process, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the whole point.
So auditing is a very pricey business. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to actually submit an audit for any film project. What we're proposing is a paradigm shift. It's not just trust the company or trust the producer, but just go out there and verify it. If you've actually invested in that film or are a beneficiary in that film, you can log on to a Explorer on the blockchain and verify each transaction made and how it's being split among everyone.
Well, I would like to add that the biggest deficit in the film industry is the deficit of trust and transparency. And that's why we use blockchain. Because initially, our project, the origin of our project was not, let's do something in film industry for blockchain. Actually, the origin was the curation. Let's incentivize other people to curate the content. But then how can we incentivize them? We would need to pay them like a share of revenues, but they would need to trust us that we actually do it in like fair and square. And also it would create a lot of administrative burden. Like, for example, you create a store, maybe you create 10 transactions in months, we need to pay you like $5, so you need to invoice us, we need to transfer them. I mean, it's kind of complicated. And
Which we're going to distinguish between a centralized system and a decentralized
But
system.
here, what's happening, when the user pays in our system, the user pays to the smart contract, and the smart contract would pay directly to the rights holder, and it can be any rights holder, producer, filmmaker, distributor, sales agent, whoever signed for whoever owns the right in the territory, to the platform for the technology, and simultaneously to the curator.
One second. When you say smart contract, the definition of a smart contract is something that you can code it.
Well, smart contract is a computer protocol which controls transactions. Basically, it replicates the paper contract with terms and conditions. You just make it in a form that blockchain understands it. So.
Okay. And go ahead. Did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind if I play devil's advocate a little bit.
Oh, I'd love for you to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, just to kind of liven it up a little. So I hear what both of you guys are talking about. It's fantastic to think about how the filmmaker can get paid directly using this technology. But I think the question that has not been solved yet is, to get the filmmaker paid, a user has to pay money, right? So here's the question. If I'm a user, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm looking for a film, what do you do? Well, in my case, the first place I go is Netflix. I have a subscription, so I have incentive to open up Netflix and see if there's something there I want to watch. But if somebody sent me information about a film and it's not on Netflix, well, what do? I use a search engine. In this case, I happen to use one called Google. A few people use it, so I know it's going to have a lot of information. And then it'll tell me usually where I can watch the film. Typically, I have found that when I want to watch a film, the choices are YouTube, Amazon. There's a few other, like maybe, I don't even remember the names, because it's mainly Amazon and YouTube. And then if I want to pay the $2, iTunes sometimes, if I want to pay the $2, I can pay it and watch it, and sometimes I'm too cheap and I just use Netflix because it's free for me. So what is going to incentivize a user to go to a new platform? I feel like there has to be a number of, there has to be content there, and then users have to go there. So there's a little bit of a chicken and egg issue.
Let me answer that. You just mentioned that when somebody tells you about this is a great film, go and watch it. And you go and search for it. But what if somebody tells you, this is a great film, go and watch it, here is a link. So you just need to click on the link.
I don't click on links people send me. If I've never heard,
But
I mean, really,
somebody,
honestly,
somebody,
I get
somebody.
really,
No. But somebody who you trust, who you follow on Facebook or whose blog.
I tell you, I trust my mother, and she sends me links all the time. I've never once clicked on any of those links. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, lots of people actually do click on links. Let me just continue. I mentioned Fantastic Fest, right? So they have their own following. People who used to go to this festival, they know the brand, they have their branded store, and they follow their Facebook page, their Twitter, whatever, because they trust them. Or they respect them. So they have recommendations. Or you read a popular horror movie blog like Bloody Disgusting with 1.2 million people. And they can integrate not even the link, even the player. So you read the blog, you click on the player, you start watching the film, you pay for it, you don't even need to go to our platform. Because the films, we have technology which we can integrate the films from the platform to any other place where there is an audience. So they can lead the people to their, let's say, Bloody Disgusting store with their logo, and people in the horror universe, they love it. Or you can actually click directly in the blog. So that's how it works.
Got it. I think it makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying to me is that there's an influencer,
Yep.
somebody who I trust, and like I said, I do trust my mom. And if that influencer has curated some content and I feel that I can trust the link, and I think there's a little bit of an educational process in the beginning to know, okay, this link, if it is an influencer site like the Bloody, what is it called? Bloody what?
Bloody Disgusting.
Bloody Disgusting. Okay, yeah, if I trust that, then I can
It's a very
go there.
popular blog.
Fantastic film festival, of course. Then at that point, watching something through those curators, watching something through those influencers, now this is getting quite interesting. So it sounds like your company is now approaching these large influencers and bringing.
And by the way, those
films.
influencers can be tokenized to push the film forward, and they can actually become stakeholders under the film chain system, right? Like
That feels a little spammy to me.
well, I mean, she's going to explain that to you because
So when we started our company in 2014, our focus was on film crews. And what we wanted to do is to empower producers and film crews to become profit participants in the projects they were working on, but in a very safe and transparent way, not in a shady handshake type of deal. And we realized that, of course, we were doing that in a very sort of non-blockchain, so we were completely off-chain at that time, but still with a lot of support from legals, putting very transparent and simple contracts in place that everyone understood and agreed. Now, if we get to do that on the blockchain, that increases the transparency and the acceptance for cast, crew, and why not film fans that just want to contribute to a film. So, well, we're not there yet. We've only focused on film crews. In the future, we could definitely see ways of incentivizing.
so basically those film, as far as the influencers are concerned, when they become tokenized and they become incentivized to promote your film, they can become a kind of an ancillary or tertiary or tertiary beneficiary as a marketing tool to push your film, right? So that becomes kind of part of your marketing budget.
Absolutely.
Just don't call it the Fire Film Festival.
But actually, I mean, it can be also done the other way, because if you pay via smart contract, for example, let's say you handle the wallet for the rights holder to integrate it into the stream of revenues, you would only receive the part after the technology is paid and after the influencer is paid, because the influencer is paid directly by the user, by the smart contract. So you don't need to actually pay to the influencer because he's been already paid via the smart contract. So you only receive what is due to the rights holder. But
Correct.
you can also, of course, have other influencers that you can integrate working via other, systems and platforms to incentivize people.
Stu, I want you to talk a little bit about the regulatory issues that tokenization has kind of.
Do you mind if I ask her a question
You can.
first?
Go right ahead.
I'm just curious. So if just back to the film crew thing, because I think it's really interesting. So if I am a DP, or actually if I'm the boom operator on a movie, are you saying that using this technology and through the smart contract, there's a chance I can get paid some royalties because I was a really good boom operator?
So Not because, you know, we
By
could
the
have
way,
been a good or not a great
I am a good boom operator, just so you know.
Wonderful. So what the technology enables is, to date, the way the royalties are handled is a very manual process. It's generally either film accountants or collection services operating on Excel spreadsheets. It takes generally 6 to 12 months to get the report on how much the film has made, and another couple of months until the payments are actually being released to the boom operator if he's invested in that film. So what the technology and the automation allows us to do is to put together payment instructions on the smart contracts that can involve hundreds of beneficiaries. It can involve 60 members of the crew, producers, investors, and so on. The moment money hits the account, the film account, it's automatically distributed to all the 100 beneficiaries, including the boom operator. And what blockchain allows us to do is to actually make micropayments or smaller amounts of payments much quicker.
May I add something? For example, it can be actually, our systems can be connected, integrated. So in the moment you pay for a film, the money goes from us to film chain and from film chain to all the beneficiaries. It's easy.
So I'm kind of curious about this because I've operated on the side a little YouTube channel, and every now and then I get a report from Google and it says I earned 7 cents. But they don't wire me that 7 cents, right? This is, it sounds like you've been in this situation. So I'm patiently waiting because Google tells me that after it becomes $100, they're going to wire me the money.
Your grandchildren will receive it.
Yeah. I think I'm up to $5.37 right now, so I'm waiting a little bit longer. But I'm curious, if I'm the boom operator and through this bloody festival curation site, 530 people watched the movie, and they each paid $2. So now there's $1,060 that's been distributed to an influencer and to the technology, and everybody's getting paid along the way. Me, the boom operator, at the end, how much will I make and when will I get paid, and will the wire fee be really expensive?
So we're talking about where your position is in that waterfall. So of course, there are going to be several layers on top of the boom operator. The sales agents, they get their commission on the festival, on getting the film into the festival, producers, investors, and then we get to generally to the cast and crew. We're definitely hoping to build that into a more hierarchical, or encourage films to be done in a much more flat hierarchy rather than this in the traditional hierarchical manner. And let's say the boom operator only has $5 that he needs to, or he or she will receive at the end of the day. The payment is done, it's allocated automatically into their wallet, and we're still currently at FilmChain plugged into the several, the traditional banking system, but we're working with some of the top technologically driven banks out there, and that fee is completely set at a minimum. So the threshold can be incredibly reduced from the $100 that you mentioned to anything up to sort of $2.
Really, and if I'm anywhere in the world, is it possible? Can I cross borders here easily or not really?
Absolutely, as long as you keep track of your withholding tags in different jurisdictions. Absolutely. Well, it's like this anywhere. You have to keep track of where you earn the revenues, and at the end of the day, still pay your tax on top. But yes, the automation makes that possible, and blockchain makes that possible.
And let's not forget. I mean, the blockchain technology is not going to be the end all be all for everyone. I mean, there's only aspects of it that are just coming to the forefront of people's attention where it can be utilized in a way that's meaningful to them. So there's parts of it, there's things that it can do and there's things that it cannot do at this juncture.
So I'm curious, and Sam, maybe this is a question for you from my side, is at the end of the day, if we're talking about partnering with Fantastic Fest, which you don't need blockchain to do that, right? If we're talking about streaming or watching the video that's provided on your system, you don't need blockchain to actually stream it, right? what is happening on the blockchain itself? Is that the payment only, or what exactly is happening?
Let me explain. Of course, you can build a VOD system without blockchain. That's why we have VOD before blockchain arrived. So what the blockchain is for? First of all, blockchain provides transparency and accountability. Because at the moment, when a user somewhere rents or buys your film, the transaction is verified by the blockchain and stored across the blockchain. And I don't know, maybe we need to explain how it works because it's a distributed ledger. So we work with Ethereum. There are several million computers in the world keeping the same record. And you, as the right holder, have a direct access to this record. So you can see that at this moment, your film is bought by somewhere. So you know what's going on. We can't hide any transactions from you. Then...
Can I ask you about that real quick? The practical nature of that working? So I'm just curious, because I've tried to look at the Ethereum blockchain record before. So if I'm the filmmaker or the filmmaker's representative and I do look and I want to see how many transactions, what I see when I look at this blockchain record is literally 5679135B question mark, exclamation point, and then it says $1.99, and then it says B478666, and then there's about 8 million of those per day.
Of course.
How do I figure out what's going on?
Well, of course, you would know, you can always see what's going on with your, because you can select your Ethereum address, and you will see all the transactions coming to you in real time. It's easy. Then we provide you a dashboard which interprets this into your like film. It's called selective transparency. Everybody can see every transaction on blockchain, but just as you explained it, not everybody can understand it. You would be able to understand transactions for your films because the system would match the IDs with the film titles, and you would understand it.
So just to be clear on that, so your company is interpreting that for me and providing the dashboard for me, right?
Yeah, but you can also see it directly. There is a way to do it. It's not a problem.
So how do I know, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, I'm just curious, how do I know if when that was processed, I've seen the $1.99 8,000 times, but how do I know if there was more $1.99s that didn't get put into my account?
Because you can also see it directly in the blockchain, because you would be able to interpret these figures, because you know your IDs of your films. So you'll see it. So you'll see it
but if you were diverting that to some other wallet, how would I know that?
Yeah, because you will see a transaction.
But going to somebody else's wallet.
Yeah, then you'll say, what's going on?
So, but I have to look through millions of lines of transactions.
No, but there is a way. I mean, if you don't trust us, you can hire your own. I mean, specialists who will show you how it works. It's not to
make
hard.
sure I get my 35 cents, right, at the end?
Yeah, but I mean.
All right, let's.
Look,
I'm just presenting some challenges. That's all.
Look, you can. Again, you can look into the blockchain. There are things which you can see with naked eye. There are things which you would need some kind of help, but it's easy. I mean, it's verifiable. You can verify it independently from us.
Okay. All right, so I wanted you to talk about the regulatory aspect of tokenization, if you could kind of elaborate on that, because I know that's a challenge for a lot of people who don't understand, especially with influencers out there right now going out and pushing stuff, and they could be they'll be running amok of regulatory laws and SEC laws.
Well, from what I'm hearing from these guys, there's not actually tokenization that's happening. They're settling in either fiat or existing cryptocurrencies. I think Ethereum was one of them, and fiat I know you take as well. So if there's not a new currency being created, a new token being created, the only regulatory issues sound like they're withholding taxes and existing government regulations for money right today. So I guess then, just to think about what you're saying, one part of blockchain is that having some sort of currency across the system is what originally makes it attractive. And that currency is a digital currency. And so the digital currency theoretically means that You don't have to worry about borders. You don't have to worry about governments. That currency can go all around the world. It's extremely affordable. That's the promised land, right? And then the first one to come out that actually used and created blockchain was Bitcoin. And so the creator of Bitcoin said, hey, I figured out a way to make this global digital currency. And he or she, nobody knows, because the creator is mysterious, which makes it super exciting. And that person came up with the blockchain technology. Then, if you guys have followed this history at all, a number of people along the line said, hey, I want to have my own coin. And they created a number of coins. And in that process, a lot of people pitched in money because there was this huge wave towards, hey, did you see this Bitcoin thing? Guys I know only had $1,000 and now they're worth $8 billion. I think I should get in on this. And so there was this bubble that happened. But nobody really used these coins for anything. And the governments also started to get a little bit strict and said, wait. You can't really make your own coins without filing with us. And every single government started to think, what do we do? And there was a lot of debates about this. So right now, you can still make your own coin using this blockchain technology. Every single one of you guys can make your own coin. But if you want to sell it to somebody, you have to be careful because you probably have to register that as a security with whatever organization manages securities in your country. But making your own coin, is that really important? Is that really the point here? I think that's become the debate.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm shifting gears on a lot of things because I'm trying to keep this as dynamic as possible. So Sam, your platform. Let's talk about the distribution aspect and how you can control who can see what, where, and when, and the revenue that can come from that.
Well, talking about own coins, we thought that we would do it initially, and we thought about making an ICO, selling our coins in advance, and financing our project. Then the whole kind of ICO thing died out or became comatose. We don't know what's going to happen next. So, but also when we looked at the technology, we thought that we didn't really need to reinvent a coin. There are lots of well-functioning cryptocurrencies out of there, like Ethereum, or there are some new very interesting solutions coming. So we can use it, and we don't need to.
And with your system, you can either use crypto or you can use real fiat currency.
Well, let me explain. Yeah, we can use both crypto and fiat money, but let me explain you the difference. And to decide to give us only rights to sell for crypto or both for crypto and fiat is up to the rights holder. When you use a crypto, it's a 100% blockchain trustless model, which means, let's say I have you're a producer, you give me a film, and you want to see the film. So when you make a payment, the payment is made to the smart contract, and actually you can see, it's very easy to see all the payments on the smart contract, so independently from us. So the money goes, the crypto goes from you to the smart contract, and from the smart contract, your share goes directly to you. There is no way we can somehow redirect the share. And it's fine, it's 100% trustless. You don't need to trust me to do it, because it's a technology. If it's a fiat payment, like PayPal, which we integrated, you pay to us, and we automatically integrate, we have a deposit of crypto, and we automatically initiate the payment of crypto to the smart contract on your behalf. Because you are a normal user who doesn't have any cryptocurrency yet. So, but in this situation, you still need to trust our technology. It's not 100% trustless because we are in the middle. But we hope that crypto adoption would become much more widespread soon.
Do they adopt crypto? I'm kind of curious.
How many people of you don't have any crypto?
If you have crypto.
Yeah, you see, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Raise your hand if you bought it more than a year ago and you still have it.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
All right.
Hang on.
But, for example, we just discussed with another panel, there are lots of things happening. Telegram, the popular messenger, is launching their blockchain, and they raised $1.7 billion for doing that. And they are saying that their cryptocurrency would be super friendly for micropayments. And every Telegram user will get a wallet, which means suddenly we have tens of millions of users, potential users. HTC started to produce smartphones with built-in hardware wallet, And now there are lots of rumors, and there's a lot of basis for these rumors, that Samsung is the next. And maybe there are lots of leaks that Samsung Galaxy S10 will have a crypto wallet built in. If not S10, maybe S11, but something is happening because they're already patenting the technology for that. Lots of leaks from Samsung suggest that there will be mobile wallets in every smartphone soon.
Well, and actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but Facebook, and if anybody hear of something called WeChat out in China?
Yeah.
So WeChat is already the biggest digital currency in the world, and there's a company called Line that's out in Japan that has a very strong presence in Southeast Asia that is now registered and announced its own digital currency. And Facebook, I actually personally know the guy who's in charge of digital currency and crypto efforts at Facebook. He reports directly to Zuckerberg.
I personally know the guy who's in charge of Facebook Messenger, so maybe our guys are talking to each other.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
You don't have to whisper. You know, you've got like 200 people.
So-
out
Sure,
here.
our guys are talking to each other a lot.
If I can jump in for a second.
Please jump in.
So one of the things, because I know we've been talking a lot about crypto, and we'll leave
they're having
Sam
a
and
moment.
Stu. But one of the, if there's sort of one main takeaway that I would like the audience to take from today's panel is that there's, there's a lot of talk about cryptocurrencies, but there's a big difference between blockchain and crypto. And the underlying technology of blockchain has many other ways of it's the whole sort of architecture that makes cryptocurrency possible. Cryptocurrency is just one application. The way blockchain can be and has shown, and we had a workshop earlier today, part of the blockchain day, where 6 companies in the media space presented their real applications that are currently out there on the market, and they track transactions and they enhance the visibility of data for all the users. So just one point, blockchain is cryptocurrencies are just one application.
Yeah, which is
of
the
blockchain.
negative side of that, the hockey stick example that I was trying to say. It's like, because right now, whenever you use the word blockchain, they associate it with crypto, and everybody's like, I'm going to run away as far away from it as possible. So until we get to the point where it's adopted and adapted, and now we're going to talk about scalability, because the last talk we talked about, the issue becomes, let's say, for example, your platform now goes off the hook, and now you've got thousands and thousands of filmmakers trying to flood your platform and get on that platform and conduct transactions when they're selling. So because you have Ethereum may be slowed down. So you may want to go up to maybe another system, or you want to talk about that, because...
Yeah, it's all possible. Well, our system is like a car. We can take out one engine, put in another engine. It will take maybe a couple of weeks of work, but it's okay. We are ready for that. But also there are lots of things happening with Ethereum. They're talking a lot about Ethereum 3.0 or 2.0, I don't remember. But the thing is that working on something called sharding technology, plasma technology, and they're promising that Ethereum will surpass Visa and MasterCard in terms of transactions per second, and the cost of transaction would go dramatically.
Because you mentioned last time something about the 3 things that you have to be aware of, which is scalability, decentralization,
and security.
And also it's security.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit
well,
for the audience that, here?
There is kind of an axiom. You can't max all 3 parameters: decentralization, security, and scalability. So you need to look for a kind of a perfect combination of these 3. And the trick is how to reach scalability without compromising too much on decentralization and security, where is kind of acceptable limit. And all the blockchain blockchain companies and foundations and engineers are kind of fighting to find the best solution right now. But there's also another very popular blockchain called EOS, also looking at that, and they raised I think $4 billion. And I've been listening to the podcast which you gave about EOS. It can be, we can jump over to EOS or to Telegram Open Network, or maybe Ethereum will offer us a great solution very soon.
So what about, let's say I'm a traditional distributor, and I'm not having a very successful market. And then I start thinking like, maybe, well, I'll have some catalog titles that I haven't been able to sell. I've got like maybe 500 or 600 or 1,000 films sitting there from 10 years ago, and I haven't been able to sell it. And they come to you and say, Sam, help us out.
Yeah, that's actually what's happening. We are getting lots of catalogs, but you have to understand.
So are they licensing them to you then? Or how does that work?
Well, right now, they are licensing their films to us. We have so-called BVOD, blockchain VOD licensing agreement.
So what your platform is TVOD, which is transaction video on demand, correct?
And I don't know, our legal advisor, unfortunately, is not here, but he would answer, Harris Tulchin.
So you could say anything you want right now.
No, but actually, we think maybe we would need to change our agreement, so you will not be licensing films to us. We will be licensing our technology to you. It's kind of so because even when you license your films to us, our license agreements is drafted in the way that you keep all the controls. You can terminate it for any film at any time. You can pull out any territory which you gave us at any time. You have your own dashboard when you can click on or off the territories, and you'll be able even to set up your own prices if you don't like our pricing. So, but then you have to understand one important thing. We are a technological company. We can't really sell your films unless the influencers, the curators do it. And of course, we do our best to build up this community of influencers, but if you really want your films to be sold, you need to interact with them, you need to bring your own influencers, or to learn how to be influencer yourself. Like I talked to one British company, and they told us, yeah, it's actually good technology because we already have 670,000 people following us on Facebook. So we can start like talking to them directly. We can be our own influencers, our own curators. So I think people need to, filmmakers or right holders, need to realize, okay, we can't always wait for the distributors in different countries to come to buy our films and to do the job for us. We need to learn how to interact with the audience. We need to learn how to interact with the influencers.
All right. So, did you want to add something, Stu?
Well, it just sounds to me, I mean, and I think this should be really clear to everybody, that this technology, however it evolves, because like Irina was saying, blockchain is not the same as crypto, but then there's a lot of other DLTs, distributed ledger technologies, that are not blockchain either. All of this comes from Napster, by the way, from way back in the day. But anyways, whatever technology you end up using, it's never going to make people watch your movie if they have no interest in your movie. And it also will not, frankly, fund your movie for you. So the two toughest things about making a movie are financing it and getting people to watch it. This technology or any technology will not solve that problem.
Which you leapfrog to, because I was going to get to your recommendation, your opinions at the very end. But before I do that, you didn't want to say, because I want to open it up to some questions, because I see some curious people out there. But go ahead.
One thing I want to add on to Stu's point. Even if we talk about the traditional filmmaking process, we've been discussing a lot with public funding bodies, private financiers in films, and so often they tell us that they would actually be much more interested in supporting a film project if they knew that waterfall and recoupment schedule and the collection and the reporting would be done in a much more automatic and transparent way. So we're not talking about ICOs by no means, but we're talking in a very traditional sense of supporting films. If the accounting behind the film is done transparently, a lot of them are telling us, well, yeah, I would be interested in supporting or taking some risks on some films that I wouldn't otherwise.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to open it up for questions to the audience. Yes, sir. Do you need a?
I don't need a mic.
Okay, great.
I'm American, sorry. Irina, so what you just spoke about sounds like it would be very interesting for, say, a documentary project. So there's a lot of people interested in the subject, and it's not a narrative film, and depending upon people's taste, but people are interested in that subject. If they could fund it, through a kind of a crowdsourcing, but through the blockchain.
So that's a very interesting point, and I can definitely relate because on our active platform right now we have actually films, especially documentary films, and one of our clients, he's had a large set of beneficiaries supporting that film, and although sort of the recoupment comes from many different territories and they're small amounts, at the end of the day they still add up and they end up in the right pockets to all the beneficiaries. In terms of crowd equity or getting a large pool of individuals is definitely something that's interesting to us. It's not what we do. We're still a collection service for films, but it's definitely something that I would love to have a conversation afterwards.
Any other questions? Yes, yes.
Hi, my name is Eva. I have a very practical question about this recruitment schedule you mentioned slightly. So how that going to work for more in the traditional old-fashioned financing plan where there is some funds or sales agents who really know where they want to stand in the schedule? And so how about that?
So again, a great question, and been incredibly lucky to have some amazing financiers such as very traditional like Urimaj, who are part of recoupment schedules in the films that we're collecting for. Our system enables any type of payment structure, so any type of waterfall to be set up. Of course, Urimaj will have their position, and they're very happy to actually have that transparency as signatory parties into that collection agreement. But it makes no difference. You can have traditional parties as well as sort of, let's say, crew and cost if you want to kind of get them involved. And each of them will have their own tranche or step in the recoupment schedule, and they're going to be paid when the money gets to their level.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Hans Hohmann. My question would be, how do you handle new evolving costs, like marketing costs, distribution costs, if you pay the writers, cameraman, the broom handler? You also do marketing or new distribution, and is this accounting be redone constantly? Or do the distributors just get their share, and if they have more costs, then bad luck?
So that's also, again, another great question from the room. There are cases where, let's say, a film really picks up. Initially, there was a certain threshold set up for the promotion and advertising by the distributors or the sales agent. And let's say the film gets picked up at Berlinale and the budget has to double, of course, affecting everyone else down the waterfall. So this is technically, smart contracts are contracts that cannot be changed. So that's the beauty of the technology, and that's why we all trust it. But how the system can adapt to that is if we gather again consent among all the key signatory parties that change that threshold has to double. Once we gather that consent, we just write another smart contract. And again, the film starts and the accounting starts performing in an automatic manner.
So everybody has to consent again?
Everyone has to consent, yes.
By the way, just so you guys know, I mean, there are existing, and again, I'm not trying to talk about competition here, but there are, for this film business, for many years now, you've got Vintage House, you've got Freeway. I mean, there are companies that are out there that are trusted, that collect worldwide your revenues and distribute them amongst the waterfall. So it's not like this doesn't exist today. This is implementing a technology which will allow it to be more efficient. Is that right?
Thank you, Sue. Absolutely. And for us, there's a term called MAYA, most advanced yet acceptable. It's a term coined by an industrial designer called Robert Louis, an American who's done amazing work. And for us, most advanced yet acceptable is a very important term because, of course, we're trying to push the boundaries as much as we can, but still keep the process very familiar for all the people in the current ecosystem so that they can plug into it easily, now, not after 10 years. This technology is ready now. FilmChain, Cinezen, and other platforms are active, and they're ready to service and support filmmakers.
Excellent. I'm going to take one last question, if there's one last question before we wrap it up over here. Any more questions? Okay, going once, going twice. Sorry? No questions. Okay, go ahead. One last question, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Paul. One question on the audience. We are all aware that the audience is a crucial point of the industry at the moment. How can we reach the audience? How can we connect creators and the audience? How can the blockchain help with this? What are your thoughts on this? How can we do this closer? Is it because I'm kind of a shareholder in a project, but how can we scale this to really make profits at the end?
Did everybody hear that question? Okay, great. Oh, microphone. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, the short answer is blockchain will not help you to get the audience. Blockchain it's a technology. I have to agree with Stu. No technology will bring you the audience, but blockchain helps us to incentivize the influencers who would bring you the audience. But you need to learn about them. And what also blockchain is good about is collecting information and making it accessible. So, for example, you have a film. You can get the information from the system about all our influencers, all the store holders, and to find out who is the best for your film. So you can contact them directly, say, look, this is a new film. You sold kind of lots of, let's say, highbrow art house film. This is the film which got like a prize in Locarno or whatever, or you had documentaries. Here's a new documentary for you, very interesting subject. Because influencers, they also have limited time and resources. They may be good for you, but they haven't necessarily saw your film. You know, as a distributor, I was specialized in art house distribution. I released over 600 films. There were so many films which I didn't release because I had no time to watch them, because nobody pushed me to watch them. So you have to do your own homework to reach out to the influencers and to use blockchain as a source of information.
Which brings us to the conclusion of this second segment of this panel, which I'm very happy to say is about what he's talking about. It's about relationships, the relationships you have not just with your audience, but with the people who care about your film, who want to push your film forward, who want you to succeed. And this is what this is all about. For example, I mean, as I was explaining to you at the very beginning, Producers Guild of America, world's largest organization of producers, 9,000 of them in film, television, and multimedia. I met Stu 10 years ago. He brought me in, and then I met Salvi, Christine, and together we build something together and we push it forward together. And without it, the technology is not as important as the relationships you gather, not just with your audience, but the people who want you to succeed. And this is what this is all about, the spirit of collaboration. And I want to thank Irina Albita, I want to thank Stu Levy, and I want to thank Sam for a very vibrant conversation today, the second of 6. And thank you, EFM Berlin Horizons, for having us today. And with that, this concludes our session.
Thank you,
Right on
Kayvan.
time. Thank you.